could smell a horse somewhere behind him, perhaps even a horse and rider. There was no sense of malice in the smells that came softly on the wind, so Wick stared intently at the cricket and the moonlight that washed over the rock. He felt a little bit like someone had been putting words in his mouth. Determinism. Could that feeling that he was being manipulated also be a sign that the universe was indeed deterministic? And he felt a slight edge of suspicion that this cricket knew about Hitler. Somehow, it didn't seem right that a cricket should know about one of humankind's ugliest representatives, especially given the fact that Hitler had died late in April of 1945. How many generations of crickets had come and gone since then? Did crickets have some kind of amazing oral tradition? Is that what they chirped about all night? Hitler? In all his days, Wick had never heard a cricket mention any dead human, and this cricket seemed to have misunderstood. Wick was not concerned about the kind of determinism that follows from the consequences of the past. He was fine with that. What troubled him was the structure of the universe. It wasn't so much Hitler. It was another German. It was Einstein. Cricket, I think we're talking past one another. I'm not concerned so much about the consequences of our action. I understand that there are certain events which follow as a natural response to what has happened before. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not even what I call determinism. When I use the word determinism, I'm talking about the structure of space-time, not about the formative nature of past consequences upon the present and future. Einstein's relativistic universe stands like a frozen river. There is no flow. Even the source of this river, the Big Bang, is frozen in place. It has its place in space-time. That ancient singularity is still there. It exists and remains there, eternal and unchanging. And if we were to go back in time, we would see it just as it unfolded so many billions of years ago. But so too is my birth, and all the things I thought were decisions, choices, freedoms. But if Einstein's universe is the true universe, then there are no decisions, choices, or freedoms. All we have is illusory liberty. I refuse to believe in such a universe. We are free. There is occasional chaos. The river is not frozen. We are in motion, cricket.
A slight shift in the wind and in the energy of the person before her made the mare and rider aware that their presence had been noted. They awaited an introduction, perhaps, or some further acknowledgement. Not all beings were able to perceive them, and of those who could, not all were interested in making their acquaintance. The real surreal aspect of space-time was troublesome for most humans in this particular universe, although it troubled the mare not in the least. It was she who had taught her rider about the journey, introducing an entirely new perspective to endurance riding. You just find yourself a time portal and pop on in for a look-see. Some of the finest grazing was to be found on these sojourns. The mare's thoughts turned to her stomach. Meanwhile, the rider was gently reaching out with her mind, trying to get a sense of what the individual before her was contemplating. There was a great deal of circular energy, a sense of puzzlement, a broad central question, with several asides, impatience, and affirmation of sorts. Although neither horse or rider was fluent in the language of the chirping ones, they had discovered that the energy of time and place often permitted understanding on many levels, independent of language, empathy, telepathy, communication without words, the connection between all things.
Wick thought, what the heck am I doing talking to a cricket? A chirrup answered him that said, don't worry, I won't tell anyone. Hello, cricket, how do you know so much? I look back into time with a telescope. I'm close to the early days, its light is just arriving here. And so you saw Hitler and Einstein too? Yes, and even some I Love Lucy episodes. Do we live in a frozen river of such snapshots? I don't know, but the deep past is arriving, I just write it down. Can we move? It seems so. Unless it is really just a living film of frames. What's between and beneath the living film? You are straining my brain, I just woke up. Let's take a short break from all this deep thinking. Who are your favorite poets? Percy Shelley, Keats, and Lord Byron, for the first explored both science and unveiled the spirit. The second enchanted the senses, and the third revealed the earth's majesty. Thus, they constitute the eternal golden braid of the romanticism of all life's things. Any gems I might not know of? Maybe. Here's a fragment by Shelley about a frozen river. On Keats, who desired that on his tomb should be inscribed, "Here lieth one whose name was writ on water, but ere the breath that could erase it blew, death, in remorse for that fell slaughter, Death, the immortalizing winter, flew athwart the stream, and time's printless torrent grew a scroll of crystal, blazoning the name of Adonais.
Wick was getting impatient with the cricket. A telescope that sees into some human past? The cricket would have to be a mite smaller for something like that to work, not to mention that light would have to be a mite slower. He jumped from the rock to think for a moment, plucked up a few nice bundles of alfalfa for the horse and a handful of watercress for the rider. He wasn't sure the rider would like watercress, but that was all he had. The alfalfa and watercress he placed on the rock, reserving a few sprigs of watercress for himself, then returned to the cricket. "Show me your telescope, cricket." The cricket looked sheepish. "Well, I don't have it with me. I didn't think so." "Well, I don't have such a telescope, do you, cricket?" "Well, no, but telescopes do look into the past." "Yes, but not to Earth's past, silly cricket. You'd have to be halfway across the universe to see Earth's past." The cricket's eyes darted from the moon to the watercress to the penetrating eyes of Wick and back to the moon again. His nervous wings twitched, producing a high-pitched squeak that sounded to Wick curiously like cricket flatulence. "You saw the I Love Lucy episodes at the pub, didn't you? And all this stuff about Hitler and Einstein, you're just twittering back snatches of conversation you've heard from Robert and Lesky and the others. Come on, cricket, come clean. All right, there's no telescope. And the I Love Lucy, pub television. And the Einstein? Max and David and Farsight, and Hitler. A copy of Mein Kampf someone threw into the blackberry bushes at the bottom of the hill. You mean you can read German?" Wicket was dumbfounded. "And the poet? It's amazing the snatches of poetry you hear when an eclectic bunch of toe-questers overdo it on the whiskey. Take Austin, for example." "So, basically nothing you've said so far is true?" "Well, I wouldn't—" "Some conscience!" Wick was a bit irritated. "Let me tell you something about light."
A sound of hooves on the turf caused Wick to turn his head slightly. The horse smell was growing stronger. The mare approached. He felt no malice from the approaching mare and rider, and now he was fairly certain the rider liked watercress. So he continued his conversation with the cricket, this time in English. "So you understand English as well?" "Yes, English and German, a little Russian." "Can you speak those languages too?" "Certainly, my observations at the pub have taught me a great deal." "Good. Chirping in your language is murder on my lips, and it's beginning to cause a facial tic in my left eye. Besides, I suspect 2 others are about to join us. I only hope the horse speaks English as well as you do." Now, as I was saying, just because light comes to us from the past bringing information about something observed back then, need not imply that the universe is determinate. Light is only information. It is not the person or thing observed. It is only a signal from the person or thing observed. What the observed subject chooses to do from moment to moment, assuming the observed has agency, is really up to him or her. But perhaps more importantly, much that goes on in the universe, very, very much, happens in the relative cover of darkness. Shall we disregard such happenings simply because no signal of light disclosed the information of that occurrence to our eyes or our instruments? And setting aside those things that happened under the cover of natural darkness, we must also take into account those things that happen under the cover of an apparent unnatural darkness, the darkness associated with dark matter and dark energy. Though given its relative commonness, I suspect this unnatural darkness is very much more natural in the observable universe than light is. As you probably know, it is considered a matter of fact that well over 95% of all that happens in the universe happens in the dark. Over 95% of what's real cannot be observed.
The cricket pondered Wick's observation for a moment, as the smell of horse breath and bruised alfalfa drifted across the warm rock through the night air. "So you're saying that we need to find a new constant? One that applies to everything in nature that has darkness as a natural property?" "Yes, the velocity that we attribute to light can be blinding if we afford it more value than it's worth. We make our theories, we rest on the laurels earned by others. We create our necessities of thought, our a priori givens, and then when the universe refuses to cough up her mysteries based upon what we consider practically law, we build systems filled with quantum retromotion, dimensions upon dimensions, time paradoxes, and quantum foam.
The epicycles and eccentrics of our current theories are every bit as prevalent today as they were back when we believed in Ptolemy's geocentric universe. Perhaps the so-called speed of light is not worth the interferometer it was measured with. This is certainly true if we fail to understand what that mysterious velocity means. If light appears to propagate at a constant velocity in relation to all other objects in the universe, then one of two things is true. Either light is indeed moving in this mysterious way, or the universe is moving in relation to the light. We have not even begun to consider the second possibility. We marched pell-mell into the first possibility because we couldn't bring ourselves to consider that perhaps, just perhaps, the universe is moving. That there is a spatial axis along which the universe is moving which we have not yet observed or intuited, an orbit of sorts through a space greater than the one we have heretofore imagined. Now, if I have properly sensed the thoughts of the horse and rider behind me, they are both of the opinion that time is a navigable medium. But if I am right and the universe is moving, time is no more a navigable medium than is a warm rock or mouthful of watercress. If they are right, then I am the same fool I always was, and no harm has been done to the universe. But if I am right, then all four of us are fools together.